weather and try to preheat them thoroughly, your point entirely, so they're up to temperature. Then we hope there aren't any wet patches and the temperature stays inside the tyres. And I've just heard a message that Hohenrhein, right at the end of the lap, next to Tiergarten, has had a little spit of rain already.
Oh, really?
Back of the track, when you're talking Adenauer Bridge, that's in sunshine, but majority of the circuit looks actually a few little drops of rain on the windscreen as we ride with Augusto Farfus. Only little ones, though.
This is Galgenkopf, not a million miles away from Hohenrhein. The Hohenrhein chicane is the very last bit of the Nordschleife as it links to the Grand Prix track after Tiergarten. So it's raining just as we appear to our right from our commentary position. I don't think we mentioned Phil Dorr absolutely obliterating a red and white cone on the Grand Prix track in his Dorr Motorsport McLaren Artura. And that car, or was that Ben Dorr, in fact? No, it was Ben Dorr, wasn't it, in the GT3 car? So number 69 in the Bitburger 0.0 backed car, the 720S, just going a tad wide on the approach to the first significant left-hander on the Grand Prix track. You are allowed tyre warmers in this race, which is a much more rare thing these days. So you can put them in ovens. You can also put them in tyre blankets that are plugged in, although the rule in the regulations when they were going top qualifying 3 from the start-finish line was that you could bring pre-warmed tyres, but they couldn't still be plugged in the blankets. So you can do that in the garage or at the back of the garage and then bring them so that they carry some warmth, but nothing like they would do when you set off on a fast lap.
Well, actually, here's a prescient comment, a continuation from Thorsten Schubert, boss of Schubert Motorsport. He said, we heat the tyres up to 90 degrees Celsius, so they're already well warmed through, and for at least 1 to 1.5 hours, depending on the type of tyre warmer. But it's all digitally controlled, so nobody has to get up early anymore, and it can be monitored remotely. So they come in, you know, toast in the toaster, tyres already up to temperature.
They're sat at breakfast, and they'll switch the tyre warmer on from their breakfast table at their hotel or wherever. Let's switch the tyre warmer on. Yeah, okay, they'll be nice and toasty when we get in. And we're not just heating the tyre, we're heating the wheel as well. So the whole thing has got a chunk of heat in it. However, bring it out of that warmer, it immediately starts to cool. It's called physics. Stick in with your science lessons at school, everybody, if you want to get involved in motor racing and any form of engineering or anything. And immediately you take it out the warmer, that starts cooling down. The moment you put it on the surface of the floor, it's dissipating heat from it. Yeah. So you've got to then get it out on that car as quickly as possible. Now, under normal circumstances, at what I would call a conventional racetrack and a conventional race, you would bring the tyre warmers out in on their trolley, on that oven trolley, to the garage door. So the regulations are they've got to be out of the tyre warmers before they go on the apron. However, when you've got a packed garage with 4 cars where you can really barely fit 2, you've jammed in 4 teams, you haven't got room. So like Johnny said, they are coming from out back. They've begun to cool down, and they're probably, by the time they go on, I don't know, 6 degrees ambient, they're going to lose the heat very quickly. So you get them on the car and get that car out there and start getting some energy through them as quickly as possible, so that you can accrue some relevant data going forward to where you want the tyre to operate. And, look, and Bruce, is it relevant at all? Because already we've got the rain coming.
Yeah, already it's coming. But also, when you walk around the paddock with this many cars competing in this event, the placement of where the team transporters are. Some are immediately behind the garages, but not everybody for the 161 teams could be close. So some of them have to push it some distance through the paddock. There are people, the fans are milling around. So, again, time is lost. But I certainly like the thing that Thorsten Schubert was saying about at least you can switch them on remotely. So
I like that.
You don't get the, it's the 24-hour race, so you're going to be up for 36 hours. And you two, by the way, are nipping in early to start heating the tyres. Oh, yeah. Boss.
yeah, you're in for 6. Yeah, that would be the 21st century motorsport here with remote tyre ovens that can be switched on from the hotel. I kind of like that idea.
Everything's linked to your phone these days. You can get an app for most stuff, and yeah, Wi-Fi operated tyre ovens or tyre blankets, incredible. I dread to say this, but there was a balance of performance update, another bulletin that came out this morning, and conveniently, they issue the sheet, the officials, but they don't tell you what they've changed it from. So you've always got to refer back to the previous document as well. The Lamborghini Huracan, which is fast, I mean, it's locked out the front 2 positions. So the front row is all Lamborghini, and the next one is going to start from 6th position, the Conrad example, car number 7, but it's a pole position for the 84 Red Bull team apt car of Luca Engstler, who did the time, an 8:11.123, Mirko Bortolotti and Patrick Niederhauser, and they will start alongside Marco Mappelli, Nicky Katzberg and Nick Yellerly, who all had a go at top qualifying yesterday as well. It was Marco Mappelli's time, an 8:11.468, that put him second. And as a result of possibly showing a bit too much performance, they are now strapped with a massive extra 5 kilos compared to how they run in qualifying, and they have reduced the restrictor diameter by 0.5 millimetre. 0.5 millimetre. This is the fine-tuning that we are talking. The BMW, which is not a turbocharged car, has 10 extra kilos, so that's, you know, double pegged back, if you like, compared to the Lamborghini. There's also an extra 5 kilos for the Porsche 911 Evo 992. And a slight turbocharger change, or no, not turbo, beg pardon, restrictor change to the Ford Mustang, but I haven't worked out whether that's narrower or wider yet. Bear with me, listeners. I know this is fascinating stuff, but even this late on in the week, the officials, the balance of performance Clark is not happy, and this has to be the final adjustment, surely, unless we do have one between warm-up and the race. But yeah, one issued bright and early this morning.
Undoubtedly, a 0.5 millimetre less air
Stricter,
going into the engine will have a minor sort of scientific effect on that. However, the kind of stifling by a 0.5 millimetre further restrictor is going to be marginal, because you can still be disadvantaged by your driver missing a braking point by a couple of metres, and you lose the same amount of time. I suppose that it's all about marginal gains and marginal disadvantages, isn't it? Because the more marginal disadvantages that you are being given. Plus, I think I heard I think about 25 kilograms is the amount of weight before you really see a significant change in the way that a car will react to that added weight. 5 kilograms, yeah, again, the science of it, the minute science of that, of breaking 5 extra kilograms and accelerating 5 extra kilograms is going to be there, and it's going to be, but the actual discernible feel of what that will do to that car remains to be seen. I'm interested to see just how much that affects the Lamborghinis.
I'm just going to put one thing right, because I mentioned the BMW. That is a turbocharged car. I was in the wrong column. So the turbocharged cars that are listed in the balance of performance, the Ferraris, whether it's an original or an Evo, the Aston Martin Vantage, the BMW M4, the McLaren, and the Vantage AMR GT3 as well. But I can tell you that there's been no adjustment to turbo boost for any of those cars. It's all been done with either the addition of a bit of weight or the narrowing of the air restrictor.
One little rather random thought when trying to sort the balance of performance is it's very hard when you've got all the cars out on the track across all the classes. Once you got to top qualifying, at least we had the cars from the top class, SP9, along with cars of similar performance. So it was suddenly down to 49 cars. And as we went through, if you're looking at a lap, even the very best drivers will make 1 or 2 mistakes around 25 kilometres. Then you factor in other traffic, it's very hard to do it. You can look at the sector times, and that's what you have to do. You have to just average it out, because I honestly reckon that any time you're on a busy track, you're going to have 2 or 3 corners minimum where you're held up by some back markers, and other moments when you're not having the optimum line because of weather, because of going past someone. So it's super difficult on a circuit as long as this, 25 kilometres. If it's a 5-kilometre circuit, you get closer to the purest of laps at some point in every session. However, that's their job. It's the job of someone with an abacus, or better still, even a computer.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to say, Bruce. You can tell you're a journalist and I'm not. So much more eloquently.
I thought you said it so much better than I did.
I don't know. Between the two of us, we'll muddle through.
Crack it.
Yeah, we'll muddle through.
Lauren Heinrich's now been plugged into the 24 Lion Speed GP car. That's the car we're concentrating on now, and he's just crossed the line to go a little quicker than his teammate Laurens Vanthoor. That's an 8:50.8. Thomas Preining tops the charts in warm-up, for as much as it counts, in another Porsche 911, the Grello car. And Preining, I don't know whether he was genuinely struggling in top qualifying 3 on that second lap, or whether that was just a bit of tactics from Porsche to not show too much of performance. But there were a few. I've re-watched particularly the second lap from Thomas from top qualifying yesterday, and it was quite untidy. and he was up the curb and he was missing apex, he was missing clipping points. Now there's a slight drama for the 519. I only say that because he's a masterful driver, and that was either a genuine struggle because where did it qualify? 8th position in the end with an 8:13.9, the Grello car, or as I say, they are just keeping their powder dry, not wanting to draw attention to any performance that they might have hidden away. This is one of the VT2 Heckentrieb cars. So for the rear-wheel drive VT2 cars, the Toyota Supra.
Mainly a sort of left rear tyre coming off the rim sort of problem.
Possibly.
It's the Supra. I don't know, I'm not an engineer, but to my eye, I reckon that's what I'm looking at. Blue and yellow tyre coming off. So for the crew there, I say the Toyota Supra is a model that just gets more and more popular around the ring. For years, Toyo tyres with Ring Racing have been running them, but other people have also worked out in GT4 form. It's pretty cool.
And that is Lauren
nice
Heinrich. Lauren Heinrich has either tripped over or had connection from...
on the Grand Prix circuit somewhere, very early.
277, maybe, the BMW. I'm going to type that into my list. That is a Ravenel BMW 318 Ti. And yeah, it's the left-hand turn, the link section from the Grand Prix Strecker. As Heinrich flashed the lights, he went to the high side, and the BMW is trying to complete a Grand Prix lap, whereas the Porsche wants to get onto the Nordschleife. And a confusion. It's like a lane change on a motorway there. One wants to go right, the other wants to go left, and they're in the wrong places, Joe.
I think the BMW was trying to get out of the way of the Porsche, expecting him to come down his left-hand side.
I think so
By
too.
the time the BMW driver had taken his eyes off his mirrors to make that move, the Porsche was already alongside on the right, and that was unfortunate. What did Hugh Chamberlain used to say, boys? Nothing
Pine's a
ever
pine.
good. Yeah, apart from pine's a pine. Nothing ever good comes from warm-up. The car that we saw, the Toyota that we saw limping back with the rear tyre, under race conditions, that car would have made its way to the pits. However, discretion definitely the part of Valor. The reason why he's pulled off to the left with just a puncture is because he didn't want to risk any further damage on that car. Get the car recovered.
He probably wouldn't have even got back to the pits before the end of the session, so absolutely sensible thing to do. 2 minutes remain. Sorry, Johnny.
That's Leo Geisler in the Ravenel Motorsport SP3 BMW. Amazingly, Lauren Heinrich got in the pits, so he, I think, had ended up pointing in the right direction, i.e. the wrong direction to the flow of traffic, to actually drive slightly against the flow and access the pit lane. So thankfully the Lion Speed car doesn't have to do another lap, potentially wounded after that contact. I mean, it's not going to be serious, but that is a headache now for the hours that sit between, what are we, nearly 20 to 11, and the race begins at 3 o'clock this afternoon.
Right, code 60.
Hatzenbach.
Hatzenbach going, from the Vidal chicane onwards through to Hocheichen. So Hatzenbach through to the point at which you can finally breathe back in and start to open it up without corners. So a Mustang and the McLaren 720S biding their time. They will get to a couple more twists and then they can open the throttle, go over to Flugplatz and Schwedenkreuz and really open them up.
I've been trying to mention this for a few minutes now, boys. 102 cars have come out for warm-up. That's not a full field of
We could add another 60 to that, or 59.
Yes, we can. And a bit of British interest here. Alex Brundle is out in the Mulliner Motorsport Porsche. He's finally come out. He's into Sector 3 now, but that, again, that's just a bit of a research mission on a systems check, I would think, at this stage, with what, just over 20 minutes of the warm-up session remaining. Alex Brundle.
Well, he's done plenty of laps around here. Of course, he was going to double up and compete in the historic long-distance race yesterday afternoon in a Porsche 911.
But that class winner here.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, he's stepping up to the top class, to SP9. Long-time runner of Mulliner Motorsport, and he's doing more and more historic motorsport. So he's getting, you know, plenty of time. And occasionally, he still finds time to go commentating as well. God, what a life.
It's a busy boy, and he's actually very good at all of those things you've just mentioned, frustratingly for me.
I know.
It's after our jobs as well.
Yeah.
Down the Dottinger Hoor, then, will go the McLaren of Ben Door, not showing any scars at all from destroying one of the traffic cones on the Grand Prix track, and has one of the Ford Mustangs full company on the Yokohama tyres.
We've got sleet falling at Horacht. Thank you, Johannes, for that information. Now, Horacht is the highest point of the Nordschleife, so
do you know,
the rain turning to ice.
I've learnt something this year, because it's not the highest point of the Nordschleife.
No.
Are we at the highest point?
Sabine Schmidt's Curve is the highest point of the Nordschleife. Horacht is named after the mountain Horacht nearby, which is the highest point of this whole kind of near
Where did you
Eiffel
learn
Range.
that from?
From this book.
Oh,
The book I
that
refused to buy
every
this year, the Nurburgring 24-hour book, it's got pictures of every single car, no pictures from our commentary
I bet I
box.
can't find the right page now to prove my fact.
Oh, no, you don't have to. We believe you. I mean, why would you lie?
Just to draw attention to myself, really.
I can't believe that start-finish straight is not higher than Sabine Schmidt's curve, because when you're going along there, the start-finish straight, the track drops away and it starts to ride through the Vidal chicane. Yes, the highest point it gets at that point, but surely when you come out of Hocheichen onto the start-finish straight, that's got to be the highest point, unless it's her out.
Maybe it's the Nordschleife, therefore, rather than in the Grand Prix circuit. Let me just read the quote to you. Sabine Schmidt's corner, at this point, the highest of the entire Nürburgring at 632 metres above sea level. The cars leave the Grand Prix circuit. There you go.
There you go. I just want to mention...
This book, by the way, is the 24 Stunden Nürburgring Nordschleife 2025. Tim Upitz.
He's been doing that forever and a day, and it's a day and a night and another day, of course.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's not just him that writes this thing.
I hope not. For his
I
sake.
deliberately didn't start a collection of them because I would need a house extension and more books, more
time to read.
Yes.
I didn't buy it last year for the 2024 edition because the 2024 edition kind of got red flag very early and then never restarted.
A lot of blank
But
pages
I've also
back of that one.
there's an equivalent for the Nürburgring Langstrecken series, which is the championship annual. That's mega as well.
Yeah, it
I
is.
need another bookcase for those.
If I live any longer, I'm going to need a house extension for my autocourse collection because that's getting thicker and thicker every... I just want to say hello to Brian Fenton, who, when I first saw him on the collective chat, I saw it's Brian Fenton. Better to happen now rather than later on. He was talking about the BMW and the clash with the Porsche. Yeah.
When everybody is on the circuit, we'll have obstruction for you, and it's very much drummed into every single driver. They have to come and prove they can compete on the Nordschleife in some of the NLS rounds beforehand to get their permit. Take Max Verstappen. When he arrived, four-time world champion. No, you're not allowed out in the top class car. You've got to prove it in one with lesser performance. Also, to understand the position of not being in a car, pulverising everyone else and powering past, but looking in your mirrors, seeing, understanding the other players in this overall theatre in which you're operating. And I think that is just so sensible, because if you're in the slowest car, you're spending as much time looking backwards as you are forwards. But you just have to stick to your line, Joe. It's something that's drummed into them. Let the faster cars find their way past you, because otherwise, in the world of second-guessing, even across a 1-hour race, there'll be some that get it wrong. But across 24 hours, if you're going, I might go over here, I might go over there, that's just asking for disaster.
I just want to mention, if anybody's not caught our coverage for the last couple of days, this is the car that will start on pole position, and it's Mirko Bortolotti doing laps in the Red Bull paint scheme. They're very much Red Bull backed, Red Bull apt Lamborghini Huracan. The sister car kind of looks like it's come from a completely different team, which is in the green and the white, but they are teammates, and they will start on the front row together. It was a Luca Engstler time. I'm not sure who necessarily had Luca's name in the sweepstake to take pole position at this year's race, but he's been doing some excellent stuff in touring cars and is now a masterful driver of a GT3 car.
Yeah, I first saw him racing TCRs for the family team. His father, France, long-time racer, but he just is one of those drivers who each year is getting better and better. I tell you what, though, that is a massive, massive feather in his cap.
Very experienced driver. You mentioned there a full grid of GT drivers, really very experienced driver. You mentioned there a full grid of GT drivers, really are the world's best GT drivers, the world's best racing drivers, period. You know, this is a very, very high standard of motor race that we have here at the Nürburgring 24 hours. And there's a name there, Thomas Preining in that Manthey car, currently top of the timing sheet, even though we're not really interested at all about the lap times. 8 minutes 42, best time for him, way off the actual pole position time we saw yesterday. However, this warm-up session is all about preparation for the race going forward, and that's why we saw the Lamborghini number 84 just coming out for what I would think is a systems check.
Yeah, and then nobody's going to set a really fast lap. There's a slow zone still waiting for that blue and yellow Toyota Supra to be pulled away, the one that we talked about with the left rear tyre just coming off the rim. But now it's also, we have seen a few windscreen wipers on. That was about 5 minutes ago, but that seems to have stopped. Windscreen on Grello, absolutely the windscreen wiper vertical up the middle of the windscreen, but definite slippery track at certain points. And Thomas Preining there, little snap to the left, snap to the right, controlled it. Always take a look at the clothing of the marshals. Have they got their full wet weather jackets on top? And just think for the moment, a circuit that's 25 kilometres long, think how many marshals are required to run an event like this. I did have the fingers, but they're not to my fingertips. But it's also how the marshals get to some of those marshal posts. Some of them are effectively just confined for safety over the barriers and then slipped on the grass bank behind and sort of went missing. And when the rescuers came, they couldn't find a driver until he went, I'm over here.
I'm in the trees.
Yes.
I'm in the trees.
So enormous drop-offs at various points.
You can kind of emulate it, but the kind of TV coverage we have of the Nürburgring. Back in the 70s, the German Grand Prix would be run from the pit straight and then go to the helicopter camp. And then you pretty much follow the cars around via helicopter. Much more technology allowing us to go on board. I mean, how lucky are we to be living in these times where, one, you can turn your tyre warmer oven on from the breakfast at the hotel, from the breakfast table at the hotel, but also we can go in car and in helmet with some of the drivers, but in car at the moment with the fastest car out there, who appears to be tippy-toeing around this section of track. And I think where are we at the moment? Are we heading towards the Carros? We've just come out of Bergwerk.
Kesselchen now, Klostertal about to leap into sight. That's the tighter left-hander, and yes, then the run into the carousel.
This section here is usually flat chart, foot to the floor. We're just steering the car through those curves. However, you saw how tentative that Thomas Preining was, or you heard how tentative Thomas Preining was on the throttle there, just tippy-toeing through.
Catching the sight of another Z4. This is the number 40 entry for Peter Pozovac in the WIS Racing Team E89 Z4. So different vintage of Z4 as well within this race, not only visiting these former GT3 machines.
And it's also rather fitting another driver in that car is Volker Tricek, for so many years raced a car that was sort of out of kilter.
Yeah, well, there's the Foxdale, in fact,
and he had
by VT2 Toyota Supra. He's sharing with Manfred and Matthias Roos, who might, again, be another dad and lad team. I haven't checked that, but two family members of Roos, joined by Malta, and sadly, they're not going to get their car back before the end of the session. I'm trying to get an update on how bad the damage is on the 24 Lion Speed GP car of Lauren Heinrich, which has not reappeared after making it back to the pit lane after it clashed with the 277 BMW 318 from the SP3. After it clashed with the 277 BMW 318 from the SP3 division. That happened
someone's dream car created by AI out on social media. This is in the flesh itself. This is far better.
Didn't it grow out of an...
Someone's dream car created by AI out on social media. This is in the flesh itself. This is far better.
Didn't it grow out of an April Fool?
Now I'm not a BMW driver anymore. I can laugh at that.
I'm reminded of the Subaru Levorg as well. That Ash Sutton won the BTCC.
That's right. That was in the state, wasn't it?
Yeah, sort of. But you know,
sort of.
Could it take your book collection to the dump
Yeah,
while you're away at an event? I hope not.
We need Mercedes to bring the shooting brake. That's what we need. We need a shooting brake, which is the estate, which is the term for an estate car in the Mercedes range.
Yeah.
Don't know why it's called a shooting brake. What on earth does that mean?
I never really worked out why they were called station wagons as well.
Yeah, that's the American.
I know it's the American one. If you got one, you've got to be semi-timbered on the side. The Ford LTD, the 1970s, sort of metallic mid-green. with the bands on the side. Right, one of the cars we haven't seen too much or talked about too much is KCMG. Hong Kong-based team, but long-time participants in the Nürburgring 24 Hours and the Nürburgring Langstrecken Series. And they've got a guy who has done a considerable number of laps here, a winner in a Ferrari in 2023, one of our favourites, David Pittard. One of our colleagues, Peter Snowden, dubbed the term pitbull for him, which he likes very much, because it didn't matter where he qualified on the grid. Say he was 8th for an LLS race. He was normally 1st or 2nd by the time the cars went through the little loop through part of the Grand Prix circuit and out. But he's a driver who came here and saved his racing career. Someone said, come and race in Germany. He's come across, he's settled here in Germany, and he's done lap after lap here. He's raced Aston Martins, but he is so chuffed to be with KCMG. He says it's a privateer team, but one that's just absolutely got the feeling of a works team. And I tell you what, if I was picking a team, he'd be one of my 4 drivers here, just because he's
the blue and yellow, but it's kind of in Minecraft form this year. With the very digital, pixelated. But you have to get very close to the car to realise that it's been done cleverly like that. From a distance, it just looks like the sort of standard Bilstein livery, but it's much cleverer than that, as I say, when you can stand next to it in the garage, which is difficult to do, I appreciate. So Marit Bachmann's just done an 8:36.7. Mirko Bortolotti in the 84 Red Bull Lamborghini, the pole-sitting car, at 8:38.2. So we are getting quicker times, as is traditional in the final 5 or 10 minutes of a warm-up session.
Interesting little insight from Ben Green, who's competing in the number 16 Audi with Christopher Haase and Alexander Sims. You were talking to Alexander. He said the track's very dusty and dirty after all the cars and fans were on the track overnight. Imagine that. That is an issue. You don't think about fans spilling over and walking around the track and painting their names.
The track, don't they? They graffiti the track. It's a tradition here.
Yeah. The other thing that happened down at the bottom of the Grand Prix track last night, as I well know, is the Falcon Drift show. So a load of Falcon rubber was put down.
Not in the right places.
Not on the racing line. Exactly. Because they're kicking the tail out, you know, on the extremity of the track. So loads of grip on that high line through what I can now call again the RichiR-CR. I had to wipe that from my brain because the drift show is sponsored by a different tyre manufacturer. But RichiR-CR is going to be all over the place for the first few laps. We had rain overnight. And actually what they try and do is scrape some of that tyre, the burned tyre on the road surface, off again. But I said, to Marcus of the Falcon Drift Show, I said, is there some sort of solution that you can put down to loosen that? He went, no, you just get a load of brooms and you just sweep and hope that some of it comes up. But that's going to be there for the first few hours, certainly, of the race.
Right, just had a look where they need to be.
Robin Cherzanovsky's just gone quickest in Cup 2, which I hope is a class we're talking a lot about during the race, the Klick-Versicherung.de Porsche. Cup 2 is exclusively for Porsche Carrera Cup cars. Entry a little lower than it has been in the past. I think it's 11 in the Cup 2. Cup 3 for Caymans is far more subscribed. But it always generates a terrific race, that, because of the mixture of driver ratings that you need in your combination, and they somehow have a habit of finding one another in the closing hours as well. So what are we doing here, Joe?
So what we're doing here is we have just bedded in a set of brake discs and pads. Now, what do we mean by bedding in? You basically have to match the pads. We're watching the work going on the 911 numbered Porsche, the Grello Porsche, fan favourite. And it's all the way around the car, all 4 corners. We basically send the car out on a set of brake discs and pads, and in the process of driving around the track and using the brake pad wears to the disc to be a perfectly flat match against the disc. So those brake pads that you take off will go away and be put on a shelf with that brake disc that it's been matched to. I have a very funny story about running Martin Byford, who was a very, very quick racing driver in a Formula Ford for Gateshead College. And he said to me, "Where's our match discs and pads?" And I pointed at a box which just had a load of brake pads in it. And I just said, Who do you think we are? Manor of Carling Motorsport? This is Gateshead College. But that's the point. And this is the attention to that 12 hours. 24-hour race, we probably get through. 24-hour race, we probably get through. The Nürburgring's a different kettle of fish altogether, so I'm not quite sure. And obviously, cars use their brakes in different ways. But you try to you try to decrease the amount of pit stop time that you have in any kind of endurance race. So that's basically the idea, and that's basically what the 911 Porsche team were doing with those brake discs.
Yeah, and what you have, for example, in the all GT3 Spa 24 Hours, obviously a different circuit, but again an epic circuit, there is a mandatory pit stop, a longer pit stop, which again has a minimum time. Off the top of my head, it's a 5-minute pit stop in which you must do a brake change. So rather than coming in and be allowed to change them as fast as you can and park back out, they say everybody has to do one. Let's just call it 5 minutes. But you know you have to do it. But you almost feel as brake technology advances, will we get to the point they don't need them? Don't need a brake change, but you don't want to be. It's like you need a whole number. You don't need a sort of a fraction, do you? I almost made the end of the race. So I think it's way better to just say, right, you're all doing it. Of course, they all have to anyhow. It's just sort of making it a little more mandated.
That mandatory stop that you mentioned there, Bruce, based on safety, I would imagine.
Oh, entirely.
Behind that.
Yeah, yeah. You don't want someone cutting a corner and then, you know, in the final half hour of race going, I've just pushed it too far, and then having a monumental moment or worse, because the brake's just effectively not there. Just, did you read out the comment about the Lion Speed Porsche?
I haven't yet, but I'm about to. The Lion Speed Porsche, we're very grateful to hear, the number 24 car, because there are a few. The 24 car that was being driven by Lauren Heinrich at the time and clashed with the 277 BMW from Cup 3, not seriously damaged in that collision. Obviously, it won't resume warm-up because warm-up has now ended officially, although...
Bathurst 12 Hours has a very strong link with this. These are 2 of the 5 rounds. Bathurst 12 Hours has a very strong link with this. These are 2 of the 5 rounds of the Intercontinental GT Challenge, and it's not about Crailsey. I'd love to come down in January, February, you know, check out the conditions in Australia. But Bathurst, epic race as well. But what a mix! You know, if you think you can race the classic circuits in 1 year, but the Bathurst 12 just goes from strength to strength. And yeah, and again, I've always been a fan of an estate car. I call them estates, not station wagons, frankly. But you sure it was a Commodore? It might have been a Tirana before that,
okay.
but I don't think it was. I'm sure it was in latter days.
By the way, the next year's Bathurst 12 Hours, which will again be the first round of the Intercontinental GT Challenge, 11th, 12th, 13th and 14th of February. So
Perfect.
that means race day is Valentine's Day. Take your girlfriend. She'll
What a
love
lovely
it.
gift.
Or the girlfriend may take the fella up to the top of the mountain.
Yeah, leave them there.
Nowhere. In front of the telly. Yeah.
Get it in the diary. It's always one of the standout events of the endurance calendar, as this is, of course, and with the 24 Hours of Le Mans just around the corner as well in pretty much a month's time. This is the sliding scale. This one moves around, and of course last year was the very next weekend after the 24 Hours of Le Mans, where we had slightly warmer temperatures. I think it's fair to say last June.
This one follows a public holiday here in Germany, doesn't it? It's
Yeah.
a Corpus Christi weekend,
It's
which
not-
is
it's
so
not
many
always-
days after Ascension Day,
Well,
which is so many
it's-
days after Easter,
40 days after Easter.
which floats around.
But it's not always Ascension Day. It can be Corpus Christi as
right.
well. But the way that the German bank holidays work, and I think the same in the Netherlands and other countries as well, they happen on a Thursday. Then you need to...
By the time you come back here on Tuesday or Wednesday, there will be zero traces of anyone being out there in the forests and
All the
and on
rubbish is
track
cleared.
sites.
Everyone has to clear up. They do a
It's
fantastic job.
Incredible.
Here's Dorian Boccalacci in the... I was talking about the Dunlop car not too long ago, earlier on in warm-up. So this resplendent in its yellow and black Dunlop livery, obviously running on the Dunlop tyre as well, which in global motorsport has sort of disappeared in certain areas and has been replaced by the umbrella company of Goodyear, but it's excellent. I'm a West Midlander at heart. I was born in Birmingham, so it's good to have Dunlop still represented on this grid in the number 17 car. 17 and 44 run out of the same outfit, Schnabel, but it's going to be interesting to see how they both get on comparatively now in this new venture. This has been the case since the start of the year, and sadly that first NLS race that actually didn't happen in the end, but these two cars were here back in April.
It's funny, when I looked to see what livery they had, I expected it to be yellow, black, as it is, but red as well, because Dunlop over the years have often had a lot of red on their cars, but this one very much yellow and black, and one of the few cars still coming round to complete another flying lap. Fastest lap, 8 minutes 32. That's the number 80 Mercedes, of course. That was the one that got damaged and rebuilt for Winwood Racing. Second fastest, Marek Bachmann doing the best time for another Mercedes, 8 minutes 36. But best time for I would suggest this Dunlop car from Schnabel Engineering is probably about to come now, but then it doesn't really matter if it doesn't, because that's not what it's all about. But over the start-finish line, it goes. And it does improve, but Dorian Boccolacci just outside the top 10, 8 minutes 51. So just bear in mind the pole lap was 8 minutes 11, 3 cars in the 8 minutes 11. Goes to prove there was a slow
serviced overnight, that they've remained bolted together, and there's been nothing left untouched and unchecked. So everybody out of that 161 car field, only 104 feeling that they needed to do that.
So through the Michael Schumacher S goes Dorian Boccolacci, through the fairly recently renamed Xiaomi curve, which is the left-hander, the slightly tighter left-hander. Michael Schumacher S is very, very fast. Then you come through the Falcon Bogan and the right-hand kink, which is the fastest corner on the Grand Prix circuit, up to the Vidal chicane. We're using the faster version of the 2 iterations of the Vidal chicane, and Dorian already going down through the box because he's going to be waved by the marshals into pit lane at the end of this Grand Prix lap. Time is already at 0, has been for the last 8 minutes or so, so no opportunity to go back out onto the Nordschleife. There are still 1 or 2, though, that are completing their laps. Most of them are home and dry, and some will need a bit of tender loving care, including the number 24 Lion Speed GP car, but we understand that is totally fixable, and it will be on the grid in time for the 3 o'clock start for car number 24. So it's the 80 Maxime Martin Winward Mercedes number 80, the repaired car that is fastest from Marek Bachmann's Pro Sport AMG. Then Nicky Thiem's Valkenhorst Aston Martin ended warm-up in 3rd ahead of Mirko Bortolotti's pole-sitting Red Bull team Lamborghini. Then the Thomas Preining Porsche from Manthey, Markovits in the Reiter Engineering KTM Cross 9:10, 9 minutes 10.4, 9 minutes 10.4. Cycling through, the quickest BMW 240i was the 658 example. The 240i's run in a very much controlled class 4, exclusively that car, and on a controlled tyre as well. 82 Schroeder-driven Porsche 718 Cayman was the fastest SP7 car, but many of those categories we could give you a class leader, but it may be the case that only one of their member actually competed laps. Nicky Thiem, though, was 3rd fastest. Wonder how this car will get on in the race that begins at 3 o'clock this afternoon. So that is the 34 Valkenhorst Aston Martin, which did not progress into the final 12 that did single that. Oh no, having said that, it did, didn't it? 34. I seem to remember calling Nicky Thiem across the line. Number 34, the Ford Mustangs featured well as well. Marek Bachmann's Pro Sport Racing Mercedes in the Bilstein colours was 2nd fastest and quickest. And I'm sure those mechanics that were up till 2 o'clock this morning repairing the right-hand, so the left-hand side of this car predominantly, but there was damage on the right as well. The exhaust needed to be replaced, and the whole rear left and front left corners of this car, everything has been checked. It is pretty much brand new. It's had to be re-scrutineered, and they have topped warm-up by 4.5 seconds, thanks to the times set initially by Mauro Engel. It was important, I think, to get him back on the horse as quickly as possible after an uncharacteristic mistake, but it can happen to the best of them. And then Maxime Martin did a couple of laps to back that up. And there we go. The scene, therefore, set for, well, a few hours' time, admittedly, for the start of the 54th. It did 60 minutes of running in generally dry conditions, although the track was wet in places. And it was a chilly night for those camping here. It's going to be much the same tonight as well, with a low of 5 degrees expected. That could feel a lot colder as well with the wind and the rain. But leading them out, this wonderful Hyundai development car. Hyundai have come here as a manufacturer to develop their next production engine, which is some statement to this Nürburgring 24 hours to kind of test a new power plant. There was Ben Dorr destroying a cone with his McLaren on the Grand Prix track. Audi number 16 kind of the Four Rings only bullet in the gun this year, but they've got a very strong lineup with Chris Harzer, Alexander Sims and Ben Green. Repaired number 80 car putting in some much-needed laps after that. Featured in part in top qualifying too, but was crashed heavily by Mauro Engel. Thomas Preining, who was one of the qualifying drivers in top Q3, also doing some laps as well. And then this awkward collision for the Lion Speed number 24 with one of the SP3 BMWs 277, the Ravenel back car. One maybe trying to complete the Grand Prix lap. Maybe the BMW driver was just trying to make space, but he hadn't realised that Lauren Heinrich was on his outside. The 24 car will be fixed and will be in the race, we are told by the team. Nicky Thiem leaping his way through Flansgarten. Marek Bockman was quick in the Pro Sport Racing Mercedes number 26.
Much attention. It's a sort of dream.